Hello fiber friends and welcome to the Jillian Eve channel. On this channel I spin a lot of yarn. I do stuff involving yarn like weaving, knitting, crocheting, all of that kind of stuff, but we also love history and history bounding, and we talk a lot about historical stuff here as well. So today, this thumbnail, if you saw that thumbnail coming in, you might think, how is this historical? But here's my proposition. It is historical to go out to your local area and gather seasonal dye stuff for your wool projects. There it is. We're historical today because right now, as I'm recording it, it is the season of commercialized Easter. You cannot avoid it. And I went to the store, I browsed this display, and I got some Easter egg decorating dye stuff. And I'm being a little bit snarky for the fun of it, for the drama, but truthfully, I have such fond memories growing up as a kid, dyeing Easter eggs with my cousins and siblings, and this has been a brand, like, probably one of the first brands I could recognize because, yeah, these characters, like, it really hasn't changed, has it? Or has it? There's quite a lot of options now. It used to just be like one little rack with these guys, and now there's all kinds of options. In fact, this one's deluxe. So I took a little bit of a recording at the store. So if you would like to use Easter egg leftover dye that you can get probably on Monday for very, very inexpensive, gather that stuff up out of the clearance bin. You can use it to dye wool. So let's take a trip to the store and talk about a couple of the different dye kits. If you're scooping up leftovers, it might be worth it to know what you're looking for, what's going to work and what's not. And then let's dye some wool with Easter egg dye. I am super excited to show you how it turned out. So let's just get right into this one. So first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to ChemKnits Tutorials, her YouTube channel. She has so much information, so many experiments about dyeing stuff with she has a lot of Easter egg dye videos, and she also has a lot of food coloring videos. So I'll have her channel linked below, but ultimately, Easter egg dye is food coloring. That's really all it is. It's just put into a little tablet form, and it uses sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda. We'll talk about that a little later because it does matter for our project here. But they use that to put it into a little tablet form, which makes it easy to dose it out for the little cups to dye your eggs in, etc. But it also gives us some fun opportunities for the ways we can play with it in our wool, to dye our wool. All right, so let's first run to the store and pick up some egg dye, and I'll show you what we're looking for and what we want to avoid if we are going for egg dye kits. All right, let's go. So what we're looking for amongst all of the branded commercialized packaging and stuff are these coloring tablets. But you know, if you find your fandom, if you find your thing, go nuts and get that sticker sheet. But for dyeing wool, we just need to find the packets with those color tablets. It doesn't specifically have to be PAS. They're basically just all food coloring. So you can take a look at what the ingredients are, and you'll see usually it's like yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, red 3. It's food coloring, and basically that's it. So the other thing to kind of pay attention to, this one I wanted to show you because I thought it was so funny, is just what other ingredients are they putting in there? Why are these eggs so shiny? Why are they called Candy Shine? Well, let's see. They have 2 packets of gloss. Gloss? What magical gloss is this? Well, it's soybean oil. It's just soybean oil. Like that's probably in your pantry. Just do it yourself. But the thing we're looking for, like this one says dabbing, not dipping. So these come with some gel packets. I'm sure it's still food color in there. I just don't know the concentration and what other stuff. So I'm mostly I go for the tablets. If you want to experiment with the gel colors, I'm sure they'll be great too. I just wanted to keep it predictable for this video because I do have a specific project in mind, so 3 Deluxe Paz it is. That was fun, and we're back. All right, so I ended up getting 2 of these Paz Deluxe egg decorating kits, and I had one regular standard kit that was still left over that I had saved from a year ago, I think. So it was clear to see that the standard kit comes with the regular 6 dye colors, the full rainbow, and then the deluxe kit also comes with these 3 extra shades. So now you know difference between deluxe and regular. We still get all of the little shrink wraps and stickers and little tool wire things and all of that stuff. So if you're just going for the basic kits, now you know what you'll find. For my project, my plan is to dye a pound of Cheviot wool. I say Cheviot because these sheep come from the hills in Scotland, and I asked someone from Scotland and he said that they say Cheviot. I know that some people say Cheviot. I don't know. I'll go with the Scottish pronunciation because that's where the sheep are from. I'm not in California. I don't know. So if you have ideas about pronunciations, let me know in the comments. I'm sure you will. But Cheviot. Why Cheviot? Well, here's a couple things. Number 1, I had a full pound of Cheviot undyed wool from Paradise Fibers. I purchased this with my own money. This is not sponsored, but I do have an affiliate link. So Paradise didn't pay me to do this video, but I'm telling you this is here, and if you make a purchase through that link, I may make a commission. Heads up, FYI, full disclosure, all of that. Now, the cool thing is, Cheviot is difficult to felt. It takes a little extra work to make it felt, and so that means it's a great fiber. It's a great breed to use if you're a beginner, if you're just trying out some new dye techniques or you want to play around. It's a little bit more of a durable, sturdy wool, so it's not as pricey as some of those fancy, soft, fine wools. Going into that, that's important to know because you want to maybe not plan for this to be a project that's going to be in a sensitive skin area, like something that goes right up on your neck where it might feel itchy. It might feel a little itchy, but if you want something durable, like let's say you're going to make yourself a pair of warm mittens to walk your dog and you're holding a leather leash, well, that's a lot of abrasion. Merino's not going to hold up to that, but Cheviot got you covered. So knowing what the wool is good for helps us to plan what projects it's going to work well for. And there's nothing wrong with some of these more durable, coarser wools. They can be itchy if they're right up on your skin, but maybe it's better to plan for like a pullover that you intend to wear with something under it, and it'll just be warm and sturdy for, I don't know, doing some gardening chores or something in the fall. I don't know. That's probably where my project is headed. We'll see. It is combed top. That means that all the fibers have been combed and aligned in the same direction. Sometimes I slip up and say roving. Roving technically is carded. A lot of times you'll find stuff labeled as roving online, even when it's combed top, simply because if you put combed top, you know, the internet gives you search results of combs and tops, whereas roving is pretty specific. You know that you're going to get results that put you in wool stuff. Anyway, this is technically comb top. Now it's time to get our dye project set up. So this is how I did it. I split this Cheviot wool into 2 8-ounce sections. I put them into my I forgot what these are called, like the serving tray things. There's a special name for these. My editing self is going to help me out here because I can't think of the word. These are the half-size ones. They're fairly deep. So let's go add some water to these, and I'm going to tell you why I like these to be deep. First of all, you can do this in a shallow, it's called low immersion dye. The more water you have, the more stuff can move around, which means your wool can move around, but also your color can move around. So if you want it to be very, very bright and specific to where you place your colors, you don't want to have a lot of water and movement because your colors are going to run around and bleed everywhere, right? So if you want to have that very specific, intense color, use less water. But I want to have more of a blend of color. I've been doing a lot of springtime, bright, cheerful colors. That's just been what I needed right now in my life. So I'm kind of, I've done a lot of these rainbow gradient things, and you can totally do that with these colors. Of course, they're great for that. But I was thinking, I might want something for the autumn, for the fall. And so I don't want to have super springtime colors for that. I want this to blend out a little bit more so that I get a little bit more of the sort of mossy greens and pumpkin-y oranges, which is great because those are sort of secondary and maybe tertiary colors that will happen if we blend this up a little extra. So I filled up with quite a bit of water so that things could move around, and I added 2 full cups of vinegar to each of these trays. Is that too much vinegar? Maybe it's too much. It's quite a lot of vinegar. It's quite a lot. You have to add some kind of acid to the dye bath so that the color will set in the wool and it won't bleed out when it's washed later. You have to have acid for the process. I'm using vinegar as my acid. Why am I using so much? Well, as I said, these tablets are made with sodium bicarbonate. That's what holds these tablets together to make them into the little tablet shapes instead of just being like random loose drips of food color or something. So I'm not sure how much of this is going to neutralize my vinegar, and I want to make sure it doesn't neutralize all of it, because then I'll have a bleeding color mess after it's finished. So I just went a little extra with the vinegar because I had a big jug of it, and it's fine. It's fine. It smells like vinegar, and honestly, vinegar is the smell of Easter. So I put a lot of vinegar in there. All right, so I let that sit for a bit to make sure that the wool had sort of absorbed some of that hot water and vinegar. The water was hot going in to get it started. And then I placed my tablets around on the wool, and I did it a little randomly. You can dab these tablets onto a wet paper towel to figure out exactly what color you're looking at, or you can just drop it in the water and hope for the best. I dropped it in the water and hoped for the best because live dangerously, and it was exciting to me to do that. So that's what I did. I think it came out great. You'll see, it's beautiful. All right, so after I had my tablets in there, I wanted to make sure that they broke up, that they, fully dissolved. I don't want to pull this out at the end and have one little, mushy nugget stuck in a fold of wool somewhere that when I pull the whole thing out, it's like, oh yeah, there's more dye here. We don't want that. But I wanted to make sure that it also moved around in the dye pot. Like I said, I wanted some amount of blending, and I wanted to make sure it got into all of the layers of the wool to make sure it was fully saturated. If you don't get it in all the layers of wool, you'll get some white, and that could be really cool. As you spin and you blend that white out with the other colors through plying or drafting, what have you, it can change the value of the color. So rather than being a very highly saturated bright color, you can dull it down, I guess you could say, with the white, and it changes the value of the color, and it can make it more pastel. So there's some really fun things you can do depending on how and where you place the dye and how you ply and how you draft and all of that stuff. So you don't, if you do try this, I'm going to say don't hold yourself back. Be creative. Try all these different things. You can come up with some really pretty effects playing around with this stuff. It's a lot of fun. All right, so my color is in my trays. I cover them up and I put them in the oven. I set the oven at 350. I set the oven at 350 because my trays have so much water in them and they're very tall. If you're doing low immersion and you have a pan where it's just the wool and the wool is barely wet, up to the top, don't do 350. Or if you do, like, stand there and watch it and don't walk away. That's too hot for a small amount of water. So to be clear, we don't want the water to boil. We definitely don't want it to boil off. We're not actually trying to cook the wool. All we're trying to do is bring that water up to temperature. So I say to a steamy temperature. I don't use a thermometer. You can if you want. But when I take the lid off, I want to see steam. And to me, that's how I know I got it hot enough. I might see some bubbles. That's okay. I'm not as concerned about boiling with Cheviot. Like I said, it's difficult to felt Cheviot wool. It resists felting. If you're using a fine wool, like a merino, Rambouillet, or even some of the like Polworth, yeah, just know your wool. And if it's a low micron, if it's a very soft wool, watch out for any bubbles, because that agitation and that heat and everything going on can potentially be enough to felt it. So watch out. All right, so I checked on my colors to see how they were coming together, and oh, I just loved these colors, how they all blended and sort of muted out. It's exactly what I wanted, so that it didn't look like, oh, Easter eggs are here. I wanted it to look like, oh, what a beautiful blending of beautiful colors. I don't know how to describe it, but I was achieving my vibe, and that was exciting to me. So I checked to make sure that all of the color had been taken up. The way to do that is, of course, to put I have a white spoon, so I put that down in there to see if there's any color. It's a little tricky sometimes to tell if what I'm seeing is the actual color that's still in the water, like the dye that's still floating around in there that hasn't been taken up, or if what I'm seeing is the reflection of the color of the wool on the stainless steel side of the pan reflecting back into the water with the light shining on it and all of that. So one of the other things I do is scoot all of the wool out of the way so I can look straight down to the bottom, and that can kind of help alleviate my concern that I might be seeing a reflection. The first time I checked, there was a tiny bit of color that hadn't taken up. Always double check your blues. Blues are just the rebellious color of the colors, especially with food color, the blues and the purples. Sometimes those blues and purples will split. It's called breaking. It's where the color components that make up the color, they strike the wool at different times. And so it separates out the colors that had come together to make up that one individual purple. And so you might get some like a little bit more like blacks and pinks and like really purpley blues and stuff. It's really pretty effect, but be aware that can happen. And also check your blues, because they just like to take forever in the dye pot. So I still had a little tiny bit of color swirling around there, but I was fairly confident that if I let the pans sit and cool, the rest of that would be taken up, and I was correct. So I have 2 pans full of wool and hot water, probably some vinegar because I could still smell it, but all of the color had struck the wool and it was set, and I was very excited about that. Off camera, because this part was kind of boring and things got hectic as we were doing dinner things and stuff in the kitchen, but I let it sit until they cooled down, and then I poured the water off and I did rinse my wool. So a couple tips: if you're going to rinse your wool, make sure that you're not going like hot water to cold water, because that can felt your wool. And it's best to just let it cool off. I know it's hard to be patient, but if you can just let it sit, if you can let it wait, maybe pour off a little of the hot water, it'll speed up the cool down, but just let it cool down. Working with super hot wool is just so close to that zone that we get into where felting becomes very dangerous. So it's just much better to let it cool down. I used a little bit of soak to do the rinse, and that helped get rid of the vinegar smell. I put the wool into my spin dryer. The spin dryer just absolutely takes days off of the drying process. It's fantastic and I love it. So I spun out all of the excess water. There's no agitation, it's just centrifugal force and all that fun sciencey stuff. And then I brought it in and hung it up to dry. So are you ready to see? Oh, these are the final results. And here they are all braided up. These are 2 separate 8-ounce braids. So I think they do look a little Eastery, but not too Eastery. I think maybe the key was to bring in more of the orange. I don't see a lot of that bright yellow. It's just a little bit over here. But I think I got enough of an autumn vibe that I can be very happy with this. So this is a full pound of wool, and depending on how I spin it and what I do, whether I crochet, knit, or weave, I am pretty sure that I can get one full garment, probably a top, maybe a little cardigan or something like that out of this project. So that'll be, who knows when that will get done, but that's ultimately the end goal. I have a couple other spins that I've done recently using Cheviot. So I wanted to show you what those look like because I have a bulky. This one I did in my spin a skein of yarn on every whirl of my ladybug video that I put up recently. You can check that out. And this one I did with my Vermont Spindle. Where did he go? There he is. So this one I spun in another video as well with my spindle that I lovingly named Calcifer because, see the little flame, isn't he cute? It's just part of the wood because it's spalted. So pretty. So these are both also Cheviot projects that I dyed myself. So these are colors that I did as well. I do have a shop, so if you want to check that out, sometimes I have some Cheviot in there that you can spin and dye and play around with. And of course, I've got that link for the undyed stuff over at Paradise. It's a great source if you want to play around with dye stuff. And if you also want to check out Knit Picks, if you're looking for just blank things that you can dye, Knit Picks has a lot of options, including already spun sock or different weights of yarn that you can dye. So you can do the Easter egg dye project also with already spun yarn. Knit Picks has that. I'm an affiliate. I'll put the link below. Go check it out. I wish you all luck in finding discount egg dye and candy in the upcoming week or whenever you're watching this. And yep, whatever holiday you're celebrating this spring, whether it's spring, Easter, Passover, I wish you all joy in those fun celebrations, and I will see you in the next one. Happy spinning. Okay, friends, this is like a weird tangent, but if you're still with me, then you've earned the weird tangent. That sounds like a punishment. So weird. Anyway, as a kid, you know, my family was really religious. We went to church, you know, all the time. And Easter was always a big deal for that, and we made deviled eggs because I had like lots of cousins and siblings, and we dyed all of these eggs, right? So of course then to use them up, my mom and aunts and grandmother would make deviled eggs for everybody to eat on Sunday, right? But like, as a kid, this concept was very confusing to me. So I always called them doubled eggs because I thought, you know, it had to be a doubled egg, right? Like you take the egg and you double the egg because now there's 2. Because why would you call them deviled eggs? Why are we coming home from church to eat the devil's eggs? It was so confusing to me. And I think my parents thought it was too cute and they never corrected me. I think how I finally figured it out was that I was like a full-grown adult. I was trying to find the recipe to make doubled eggs on the internet and it wasn't coming up. And finally I figured out it really was deviled eggs. We were really consuming the devil's eggs. The eggs of the devil. Oh, enjoy your deviled eggs.